Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I so move. Mr. Speaker, one of the core responsibilities of a Prime Minister is to set standards for ministerial conduct and hold them accountable when they do not meet those standards. The current Prime Minister has set the bar so low that ministers now need to sack themselves, as Andrew Bailey did last week. Let's recap the facts, Mr. Speaker. It appears for Andrew Bailey that abusing someone for working late, calling them a loser and telling them to F off and go home was insufficient for the Prime Minister to do anything. Then, when Andrew Bailey then manhandled a member of his staff, finally, it seems the Prime Minister reached his particular threshold. However, no one in the government, other than Andrew Bailey, is willing to offer an account of actually what happened. So it seems justice in this government's eyes is that the only person who gets to speak, the only person whose version of the facts gets heard, is the perpetrator. The victim, the person who made the complaint, is invisible in the process. The complaint was received on Wednesday. Andrew Bailey, even though the complaint had been received, continued to act as if nothing had happened, continued to do media interviews as if nothing had happened. The Prime Minister wasn't even told about the complaint until, by his office's own admission, very late on Thursday night. What kind of outfit is this government running? That a complaint about a minister physically manhandling a member of their staff was not even presented to the Prime Minister until more than 24 hours after it was received. And what kind of outfit are this government operating where the Prime Minister did nothing about it until the following night when allegedly Andrew Bailey offered his resignation? Offered his resignation to the Prime Minister apparently, and yet there is no record of that happening. In fact, it appears that Andrew Bailey's resignation didn't actually take effect until the following Monday. Is that correct? Who was actually the Minister of those portfolios over the weekend? If Andrew Bailey had resigned on the Friday, when did the resignation take effect from? Who was the Minister over the weekend? And why did the Prime Minister do media conferences over the weekend where he didn't think to mention it? What kind of level of transparency have we reached now that the Prime Minister can stand in front of the media knowing that one of his ministers had been accused of manhandling a member of his staff and had either resigned or maybe was refusing to resign or was being told they should resign, and yet he didn't think to say anything about that to the New Zealand public? Business as usual for the government, no transparency with the New Zealand public, and yet the Prime Minister thinks that's okay. We have a Prime Minister now whose bar for ministerial conduct has fallen that low that he will wait for an entire weekend to pass, 5 days after the alleged incident took place, before actually taking any concrete action to hold Andrew Bailey to account. Still, we hear no account from the government about what actually happened. Andrew Bailey said he grabbed the member of staff by the arm. That's the only account of what happened. What does the complaint say? Why won't the government be upfront about exactly what the complaint was that led to Andrew Bailey resigning? Has the Prime Minister asked him exactly what happened? The Prime Minister wouldn't even answer that. If he has asked him, what did Andrew Bailey say? Did the Prime Minister or anyone in his office speak to the person who had made the complaint? If they hadn't, why didn't they? It's a pretty serious allegation. Where a minister in the government is accused of something like that, it is very reasonable for the New Zealand public to expect that it will be thoroughly investigated. There was an incident where this happened before. An independent investigation took place, and the outcome of that investigation was shared with the public. And there were consequences for the minister concerned. Under this government, nothing. The facts are not being shared with the public. The Prime Minister did nothing. The minister himself had to resign, had to hold himself accountable in the way the Prime Minister was not willing to, and still we don't know exactly what it was that happened. We have a Prime Minister now who has set the standard, set the bar so low. Criticisms of the courts, okay. Threatening to cut funding of other organisations, okay. And now laying hands on a staff member, something the Prime Minister did not think was a sackable offence. Although did he? Still not entirely clear whether Andrew Bailey would have been sacked had he not resigned or not. Because depending on which day of the week the Prime Minister is asked the question, the answer seems to change. It's a relatively simple question. Would Andrew Bailey have been sacked had he not resigned? And that's why the timeline is important. Because did Andrew Bailey actually resign on the Friday? Will the paper trail, which the government should release, and by paper trail I include in that text messages, will that actually reveal that Andrew Bailey resigned on the Friday? Or will it actually indicate that Andrew Bailey didn't resign until the Monday? And actually the critical thing here is, when was the Governor-General informed that a minister had resigned? Because if the Prime Minister was told of the resignation of Andrew Bailey on the Friday and did not relay that to the Governor-General until the Monday, the Prime Minister has not lived up to his constitutional responsibility. Because it isn't actually the Prime Minister's job to receive a minister's resignation, that is the Governor-General's responsibility. And if the Prime Minister received the resignation and did not pass that on to the Governor-General, then he has actually breached his constitutional obligation when it comes to ministers holding ministerial warrants. So when did the Prime Minister tell the Governor-General that he had received the resignation of a minister? Because once he had received it, He has one obligation at that point, and that is to tell the Governor-General, whose job it is to issue and retract the warrants, that he had received the resignation. And if he received it on the Friday and didn't tell the Governor-General until the Monday, then he has not fulfilled his constitutional responsibility. Will, on the other hand, the paper trail show that the resignation was not actually received until the Monday. In which case, why should the New Zealand public believe anything the Prime Minister is saying? Is the real reason that the Prime Minister did not say in his media conferences over the weekend that he'd received the resignation of Andrew Bailey, is the real reason he didn't mention that because Andrew Bailey in fact was refusing to resign? That is a question the Prime Minister should be answering for the New Zealand public. These are serious allegations. Allegations we still do not know the full extent of, and yet the government aren't willing to share the details of that with the New Zealand public. Privacy is important. The privacy of the complainant is important. Details of the nature of the complaint can be shared without the identity of the complainant being revealed. And in fact, the government have a responsibility to do so. It's well and truly past time that the government fronted up and answered questions about exactly what took place. What exactly did Andrew Bailey do? And not Andrew Bailey's version of events, but what is he alleged to have done? What does the complaint actually allege Andrew Bailey did? Why did the Prime Minister's office not tell the Prime Minister until Thursday, late Thursday night, 48 hours after it actually happened? Why did it then take 3 more days for the Prime Minister to be upfront with the New Zealand public about that? Did the Prime Minister fulfil his obligations as Prime Minister to inform the Governor-General of a resignation of a minister? These are serious questions. They're not trivialities. They actually cut to the heart of the integrity of the processes of the New Zealand government. And it's about time the Prime Minister fronted up and answered those questions.
Well, that actually raises some very good points about there. Like, with informing the Governor-General, is that a simple, "Hi, Cindy, just to let you know Andrew Bailey has tendered his resignation." Oh. Okay, thank you, bye. Like,
I think with all of these things, there is an actual protocol that you go through. It's not just a casual send a text or anything.
So would that be the Prime Minister jump in the Crown limousine and go up to Government House?
I really don't know what the protocol is, but I assume that it's not just a flicking a text or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, there is a procedure with it. And also the other thing is what happens if both of them aren't in Wellington? Because I do know with a couple of Governor-Generals back, unless he was actually there for official business, he wasn't at Government House, which was Jerry Mate-Parai. He was often out in the community or somewhere in the Defence Force or in the community or somewhere around the country. He was very, how do I call it? Not home.
Let's just say, I don't think that the location of the Governor-General had anything to do with the timing of how it was handled. I think the way that this was handled was to keep it out from an urgent debate in the House while the House was sitting.
Yeah. Well, yes, and yeah, now it's ended up with one.
Yeah, but they had a week to get their stories sorted out and actually, to work out the cover-up.
Yes, considering they learnt the hard way last time with Dunedin Hospital.
So the reason that we didn't find out about it until the Monday was because that was when they were actually ready to handle the firestorm that was about to erupt.
And they were in a week of recess as well.
Yeah, all of that, all of that.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok. Who's got the order, baby?